I often think there are few people crazy enough to try some of the bold hair colors that I've attempted before. But then I get clients like this one that prove to me that you can go even bolder. 22 inches, water wave, custom curtain bangs, and a deep-rooted red blending into a vivid scarlet red on the ends. Custom orders are by far my favorite colorings to do. Not only does it give me a chance to get my hands dirty and really play around with colors, but it also gives me a broader understanding of what clients might be looking for in their dream hair colors. And this client, it turns out, wanted vivid red, so I'm inclined to give it to her. The first thing I like to do is I take the wig base that I'm about to color and I inspect it. A lot of these wigs end up costing hundreds of dollars, so the first thing I want to do is make sure that it is intact and able to withstand the coloring that I'm about to put to it. Once that is done, I go ahead and pick out the colors, and because I've been collecting dyes for so many years now, I have such a large selection to pick from. If you've been following my main channel for quite a while, you are familiar with a lot of these dyes, but some of them are new ones that I've genuinely never tried on myself, and as a result, I do get excited when it comes to a custom order. If you want to go into wig coloring yourself, the very first thing that I would recommend is get a canvas blockhead like this one, and then do this part before staining it completely. I've had this canvas wig block from Amazon for years. I've got so many dyes on it, and finally I learned that it is easier just to cover it with plastic wrap. Now, although I've been working with wigs for quite a few years now, and I definitely have learned a great deal, there is a section or an area that I feel I can always improve on, and that is my dye application, specifically when it comes to the knots. The difference between a $1,000 wig and a $100 wig is how realistic it can look. And one of the dead giveaways of a wig versus hair is whether the hairline and the scalp or the lace looks like real hair. Does it look like you have a scalp underneath, or does it look like you are just wearing a lace fabric on top of your own hair? And so what I'm attempting to do here is to apply a layer of gel to try to prevent the dye from staining onto the knots. Normally my technique is to just go as close as possible to the little hairs and avoid staining it. Once I have all of my dyes and my conditioners picked out, I pick up my brush. This thing has been here for 2 years. It has seen every single color under the sun. It has been washed probably well over 100 times, and this thing is holding steady. Yes, it might not be for everyone to stain it, but it is something fun to have if you're an artistic or a creative. Now, this particular client wanted an interesting color combination, but it is a color combination that I have done before. Ketchup red inspo, or scarlet red. So here's a little backstory. In May of this year, I attended Eurovision with Malta's delegation, and my role there was to be a wig stylist, but also in particular to be a custom wig creator, because Malta this year went heavy with the red, and for Mirjana, they requested a custom vivid red. We're talking ketchup scarlet red hair down to her waist while she performed. I created that wig for her, and it was an incredible experience, but it was entirely editorial. I genuinely thought this would be a one-time red dye color. However, not long after that, I decided to create a wig very similar to the wig that I'm creating, with darker red roots and vivider red ends, one that I posted on YouTube. Today's client literally asked for that exact wig replicated and sold to her. Her exact words were exactly like the YouTube video. So if you need more proof of why social media sells, here it is. Now, I love Arctic Fox, but I'm so happy that they updated their packaging, because getting dyes out of these tubes is forever impossible. I'm using a mix of their colors over here, and I'm even adding in a conditioning base just to start diluting it, because I do want the ends to be quite a bit lighter than the roots. Although I make and create and send these wigs out to my clients, I never end up learning why they request these particular colors or how they're going to wear them. Although the two colors do look very bold, they aren't that outrageous when it comes to hair contexts. Bright red hairs have been around quite a bit, so I imagine that the client that ordered this is going to be wearing this fairly regularly in an everyday setting. Now, one other thing that she requested is this wig has bangs, and so I ended up taking one of the wigs that just never sold from the website, which already had bangs, and I thought this would be the perfect base for this particular wig, because it already had the face framing layers and bangs that the client requested, and I get to use a wig that simply wasn't selling. Sometimes that is a reality as a business owner. There are pieces that are simply not what the client is looking for, or not what the general public is into, and especially if it's not trending, some wigs just do not sell. These would still be wigs that I spent countless hours creating, perfecting, and advertising, so to avoid selling them on a sale, I try to see what I can turn it into to create something that the public is into. In this case, this wig is the very perfect base for this client's wishes, especially because this is the exact cut that she was looking for, just with a different color. Anytime I'm creating a custom look, most of the time it is with my blonde bases, either the vanilla blonde curly base or else just the standard canvas blonde wig. These are pre-bleached, pre-treated, ready for any sort of dye, and you're going to see just how well this absorbs color because it is already a porous and opened hair type. As usual, I'm starting with the roots. This is the exact same application that I would do myself, except you're going to see that it takes significantly longer to apply the color on a wig than on the hair. And I think this is the number one misconception that people have, specifically hairstylists have, when it comes to wig dye applications. They believe that it is the exact same process and therefore the exact same timings and pricings as coloring a normal head of hair. And I'm unfortunately here to debunk it. When you're applying dye on a wig, there are a number of things that you do genuinely have to change. Color, placement, specifically how you can apply the dye. Wigs have knots. They are knotted onto the lace that you see at the front individually, and that leaves behind a tiny little speck of hair, a little dot that on blonde hair is completely invisible, but when you apply dye to it, or if the hair is left pitch black, this would be visible, and that is the dead giveaway that that person is wearing a wig. One of the reasons why wig stylists, and in particular why I charge hundreds for my custom coloring, is because I take hours just to dye a single wig, because this front hairline took me 40 minutes to apply because I am not touching the dye once to the lace. In order to get that scalp-like, ultra-realistic effect, there are two areas that simply cannot be stained, and that is the HD lace that this wig has, and then the knot of the individual hairs. That means that as I am sectioning the hair and then applying the color, I am always leaving the dye about 2 millimeters away from the actual lace. As I mentioned, this is still an area that I'm always trying to improve, because if you demonstrate too far away from the root, it will look like there is gappage and patchiness, but if you do end up staining the lace, it is going to look cheaper, faultier, and more unrealistic. The back is a tiny bit more forgiving, obviously, because my wigs are never full lace wigs, meaning they are wefted, meaning that the client most likely will never really reveal the back. I'm mostly just doing the same coloring on the back, simply if there's a gust of wind or the client gently runs their hands through their hair, they are still covered in terms of coloring. Applying just the roots of this wig took me a full-on hour, and here's what it's looking like. Point in this project, I was really contemplating recreating this exact wig color but leaving the ends blonde, because the mix of the vibrant red roots and then the blonde ends is such a vibe. It almost looked like the wig was bleeding, and I can imagine this being used in such a cool editorial context. This texture of wig is also my personal favorite. I absolutely love our water wave, and it is one of the wigs that I really wish people would appreciate more. This particular texture is probably the one that sells the least out of every single one of the wigs on my website, and it really saddens me because it can be so absolutely versatile. You can either wear it really tame and structured and polished, or else you can brush it out and you get this really frizzy, untamed mane of a look that could be such a look if you want to opt for a more powerful aesthetic, especially paired with a color such as this one. It also holds up relatively well. The vanilla blonde wig that I have had since the very beginning of the launch, over a year now, is still completely intact. So wigs such as this one that is curly actually holds up quite well because I rarely ever use any heat on it, and I also don't really brush it out. This means that it genuinely holds onto the hair much better than a straight wig, for instance. 3 days later, after I rinsed it out and let it completely air dry, the wig is finally ready for its very final touches, and this is by far the most exhilarating and fun time, but also nerve-wracking, because if there are any flaws, now is the time where they are going to be apparent. Although there were some very minor stains on the inside, the lace did actually hold up very nicely and unstained. The gel technique did work quite well, and I'm so happy that the scalp looks like scalp. This is the final wig, and the color and the style, it is just as vivid and neon in real life. In another world, this would be my exact dream hair color. But for now, this is going out to my client in the States, where hopefully she will one day tell me how she wore it.